Well, everybody, it finally happened. I've pivoted to being a Marvel Snap influencer, much like all those other ones that we all know and love, like those guys and the other ones. I watch them all the time and find a cool deck that they've come up with that they've found somebody else that come up with it on like Reddit, and then I try it for 2 games and I lose and I don't do it anymore. It's really a fun landscape, but any YouTuber would be happy to be a part of it, especially would love to be a part of the partner program so I can get 2,000 free gold so I can buy any of the cards that are good. But that's not why I'm here today. I am here because also I just want to point out you cannot buy the good cards with gold. You can buy packs that sometimes have the triangles that you use to buy the good cards, or you can wait until they drop down to a level where you can buy them or get one for free per season. But by then, Shuri will be nerfed, so it won't really be worth it. And there'll be some other card up there that's like way too good that's just out of reach. I love Marvel Snap, you guys. It's a good game and has no flaws. Marvel, call me. So here's what we're doing. There are a couple problems with this game that I would like to address, and over the course of maybe a couple videos, if this one does well, if not, you will never see them again. I wanted to talk about how we can solve some of the big problems in Marvel Snap, and hopefully not just use my knowledge of Marvel Snap, this card game. I don't know what you call these. This is not. They're cards on your it's a mobile game where you play cards against each. It's Yu-Gi-Oh or something, like that. But it's quick. All the cards are Marvel characters or locations or pets or whatever, vehicles sometimes, and the game's very quick. You kind of bet cubes on them, and then you use those cubes to rank up. And because there is no friendly, there's no just mode for casual players, everything's competitive, which makes it all terrible. I'm really excited for the button that makes all the emotes go away. I'm in the 60s right now. I usually finish off the season in the 80s, mostly because I don't have the cards for the incredible decks. One card I recently got because I saved up enough of those collector token triangle things to get Thanos. I've been playing him, and I know he's one of the good decks, so maybe in the future I'll be infinite, which is what you have to. I'm going to put the word infinite on the thumbnail probably, because that is how you do it. That's how you make these videos. It's going to be my face going like this, or like this, and then infinite 100, and then a picture of our problem child, because there is one card this week that I've seen many people complain about, that I've been complaining about forever, and I complain about most of the cards, but this one specifically has always been on my radar. And I think, as someone who just didn't have it, I was like, I don't like this card. And everyone was like, you just are jealous because you didn't spend a lot of money on and then you have it now. It's like, that's possible, but also I just don't like this card. And as time went on, and you started to realize, there are other cards that are similar to that card, except good. And as much as I don't like that card because I don't have it, I also just, don't respect it. And as a comics fan, I think I should, because as a character, it's cool. And some of these cards are fun because they give you... There are people I know now that know the name of Khazar's saber-toothed tiger by name, and they've never read a comic with Khazar in it. They don't know who Khazar is, really. They know he's some sort of Tarzan guy, which, to be fair, pretty much. But they also know that he has a pet tiger named Zabu. They know about Zabu. I'm trying to think of who is the deepest cut Marvel character. I would say maybe Null. It's not really deep cut because he's very in now, but he's a huge part of the game. There's all the variants of him. People I know now that don't read comics know all the artists, and as you get further into the game and you start getting, emotes, well, not emotes, well, you get the little nameplates and the avatars. There'll be nameplates you get, they're fun, where you're like, oh, one and only, what's this? And you, a comic book reader, go, that's actually what Spider-Man said to Green Goblin right after Green Goblin realized that Spider-Man wasn't Dr. Octopus anymore. It was regular Spider-Man, because he made fun of his man person, and he's like, it's you, and then Spider-Man's like, the one and only. It's a really cool moment in very, very good page if you've never seen it. So stuff like that, little deep cuts in there that you can appreciate. That might be from somebody else too. I don't know if there's another character that says that, but so I appreciate how this game takes comics, artists, characters, events, moments, stuff like that, and brings them into this, larger community, gets people excited about them, and, hopefully they will read the comics eventually. But I'm worried that this game will take certain characters, and because the card is bad and dumb, they will not like it, and they will think this guy sucks, when in reality, he is cool. It is cool, I guess. It's hard to say. People say he. I want to say the characters talk about him, they say he is coming. And if you don't know who I'm talking about yet, I'm talking about Galactus. Because Galactus is one of 3, as of now, what are called big bad cards, which is not a designation I believe exists within the game. It's something we've heard about from the devs on the Discord and stuff like that. But a big bad is a card that will permanently be at that 6,000 collector token range, which is the highest it can be. And they're also kind of special. They come with a weird little animation. They play very differently, right? It's not like a card that can do a special attack or is very powerful. It's that, but also it changes the way you play the whole game. So for instance, Thanos is one of them. And Thanos, when you start the game, the 6 Infinity Stones get shuffled into your hand, or your deck. So they all do a different thing, and also, if you play them all, and then you have the Power Stone, the last one, ongoing, like on the field, Thanos gets plus 10, and he gets very powerful. But also, if you use the stones right, you can really, mess with your opponents, and it's a lot of fun. Thanos gets to use his favorite side character, Cosmo. Or not Cosmo. Cosmo is bad for Thanos. He gets to use his favorite side character, Lockjaw, the super dog. There's 2 dogs and 2 cats in the game. And the dogs are both really sick. And the cats are okay. Goose and Zob. Those are alright. And obviously Goose is a Furkin, but you know what I mean. And I guess there's Black Cat, but she's not a human cat. There might be other cats. Either way, where I was going with this is, that's how Thanos works. There's all kinds of different, but once you get Thanos, it's not just like getting Darkhawk and then it's like, oh cool, I can play Darkhawk instead of this other character and, be better off. It's like a different way to play the game. Kang is kind of like that, although it doesn't really work as well as you want, and it's kind of boring, makes the games longer. But in theory, excuse me, sorry, I was just talking about Kang and I yawned. In theory, Kang is fine. He's got a big emote where clocks come out for what sounds like 20 minutes, and then you get to redo a turn, which is a big deal in Marvel Snap. You can even redo your betting. Other ones that we know are going to come up is the High Evolutionary, who I have over my shoulder there. And he's going to really mess things up and be cool. I think the Living Tribunal's probably going to end up there, who gets to split your power over the course of 3 different zones, which is really interesting. And then Mephisto, maybe, will be one, and he'll let you do, you could double the amount of cubes you get. So you could potentially win 16 cubes in a game, which is too many. But I don't think people are going to use that card that much. There's other characters that I know are coming that I'm less sure if are big bads, but so character like the Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor, maybe a big bad. I think she would count. But then you'd also be like, well, who are the X-Men big bads then? Well, it's Apocalypse, Nimrod. Both of those aren't big bads. Onslaught, also not a big bad. I do think one of the ways we could maybe mitigate some of this situation, especially because it's boring if you play a Galactus and a Kang and stuff like that. There's too many. I don't know. I said Kang. There's too many combinations of those, and I don't. What I don't want is for this game to, in a year, just be a deck with 7 big bads and then Zabu and Sarah or something like that. Sarah is a pretty interesting deep cut character if we're talking about people that are really not big Marvel players that are big Snap cards. I do think one thing they could do is limit each deck to 1 big bad, so you can't have 2. So, for instance, you could not do Onslaught and Galactus in the same deck. Not that that's a synergy that works particularly well, but you just couldn't. I think that's interesting. Not completely necessary, but it's an option. And there's other cards that I think should be big bads, right? I think Hela maybe, Apocalypse for sure, Onslaught for sure, Null I think should be a big bad. That he is. If the big bad distinction is not just a couple of cards we arbitrarily gave animations to and think are cooler, but it's something more significant than that. Like in terms of what they mean to the comics, the null should be there. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the card Galactus himself, because people don't like him. He's not fun to own. He's not fun to play. He's not fun to play against. And like, again, unlike Thanos, where if you lose to him, but somebody gets to put out all the stones and does cool stuff, you're not like, you got me. Because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you lose a game of Snap and you're like, wow, good for you, and you're not really upset, as long as I don't emote a million times. But sometimes, like with Galactus, I feel like it's either, this is Galactus, we're doing Galactus again, and then you just leave. I feel like that's usually it. Or you have some card that can beat a Galactus death null maneuver, and then you can win. But it's just so tricky. So people that don't play Marvel Snap but might be still watching this video could be curious, hey, what's Galactus do? You've said what Thanos does a couple of times, and Kang, but you haven't said what Galactus does. Okay, so when Galactus is played, he has a 6 cost 2 power. He destroys, there's usually 3 zones, and you have to win 2 out of the 3 zones to win the game. He destroys 2 of the zones, so now there's only 1 zone. And usually in combo with Death and Null, Death becomes cheaper the more cards are destroyed. The other cards in the other zones get destroyed, so that's usually good for Death. And then Null becomes more powerful with the more cards that are destroyed. So on the next turn, you'll play Null and Death and have like 50 points or something. A couple problems here. And also, there's other things that will happen too, right? Like Dr. Octopus will pull the cards in. Electro will give you an extra energy so you can play Galactus on turn 5. All this stuff happens every single time. It's no fun. But so Galactus, from a gameplay perspective, I think doesn't really work. Beyond that, I think you may be able to see one of the problems with what people in card games call the flavor perspective, right? Like with Thanos, you get the Infinity Stones, you use them, power yourself up, you're more powerful, and you can like use the stones as weapons during the game. That's in line with what Thanos does in the comics and movies and just what is fun about that character. Kang, turns back time. The flavor. It's very, very simply matches what the character in the comics can do. I don't know if the guys from Marvel Snap don't know who Galactus is or are only kind of aware of Galactus. But the way Galactus works is he comes to your planet. So the planet he goes to that planet, and unless the Fantastic Four or whoever stop him, he consumes that planet and destroys it. So it's kind of weird to me from a flavor perspective that when Galactus is played on a zone, the other 2 zones are destroyed, but not the one with Galactus. Because really, if Galactus comes to your planet, the other 2 planets are going to be fine. Yours is the one that's done. So from a flavor perspective, it doesn't really work. And then from a gameplay perspective, it's just not that much fun because there's not that much variety to what Galactus can do. And there's not that much, like, people know how you play Galactus. There's some ways. I saw a brilliant Viper Galactus move, which I'm like, wow, cool. But usually that doesn't happen. Like it's Electro or Wave, Galactus, Null, Death. That's the play. And it's, it's predictable. It's no fun. What happens is you probably win cubes over time, but you win like 1 cube at a time. So if you're doing this to climb, it's not really fun because it's the longest it can possibly take. And if you're doing this to have fun, it's not fun because every game is exactly the same. Either you get the cards you need or you don't. You can't kind of go on the fly. Like, because right now I'm running like a Death Null because I just got Null, so like a deck like that, and it's fun because it's like, ooh, should I have Venom eat this guy so that can, and you have different options. So the problem with Galactus is he's too predictable. Although in theory that should work with his character because he is predictable, right? You find out Galactus is coming, you prepare, and you fight Galactus. But the problem is Galactus can be played on turn 5, and then you have to fight. It's like Galactus shows up and then clears the way for even more henchmen to follow later. And I'm not going to say the whole card game has to be exactly like reading a comic, right? Some of the things that happen in the cards make no sense. Like some of the synergies are really weird. It's weird that the Hydra and the Wakandans work so well together. They're not traditionally aligned, but like Shuri Red Skull and Zola Black Panther are very very, very, very successful synergies, so it's weird like that. But sometimes it works, right? Like all the characters with the sword do destroy stuff, and then, you know, Apocalypse gets stronger as he gets killed, and so like sometimes it really, and that's part of what I think is so fun about this game. You get a new character and you're like, wow, that's what they chose to do with that character. Oh, I see what they're going for there. That synergy makes sense because that's actually what he did in the comics. You know, stuff like that, right? Venom, for instance, is a really good lead into Null. And so is Carnage, which makes sense because those characters are symbiotes and Null's the god of the symbiotes or whatever. So the idea that the Galactus card shows up and you know it's coming and it's predictable is something that works. The problem is the gameplay just isn't there. And I think what it's kind of missing, one of the problems, and I saw a Reddit post about this morning. Someone shared it in our group after I had written a lengthy post detailing this. So I didn't steal it from this person. I think if you got a little bit further into what Galactus' deal is, it could be a really fun card. It could be a really good big bad that is fun to play and fun to play against. If I were rewriting Galactus, first of all, he would not destroy the other zones, because if anything, Galactus is targeting your zone, right? He's going to destroy it, and by destroying it, power himself up so he'll live, right? Like so the person that does that, who plays that card, should win. If I were playing, if Galactus gets played on a zone, the person that played the Galactus wins the game. Not the game, excuse me. Well, you could do the game. I don't think that's as fun. Wins that zone for sure. So that way, even if you can kind of go, you know what, I'm going to cede this lane to Galactus and fight for the other two. So you can play against a Galactus without, you know, feeling like you have to do that one thing to stop Galactus from destroying the whole game. But also, I think there should be something you have to do before you put out Galactus. Kind of like how Magic can't be played on turn 6. Right? Magic has to be played on turn 5. That is just a condition of the card. That's how it works. I feel like Galactus should not be playable until something else happens. But what's the other thing? Well, how does Galactus work in the comics, right? He finds a planet. He's like looking for planets. He finds a planet and he goes to it. No. He sends a guy. He sends a herald. Silver Surfer is the most famous one, but there have been plenty of them. The other main ones, Terrax, Fire Lord, and Airwalker, I think. Windwalker, I can't remember. One of those guys. They are the heralds of Galactus. He sends a herald to a place, and the herald is its own thing, right? Like they are, it's not just like a guy that shows up and is like, hey guys, Galactus is coming. Like that guy has superpowers and is really strong. And then Galactus shows up. If I could change Galactus, this is what I would do. Kind of like Thanos. When you start the game, if you have Galactus in your deck, you shuffle in 3 heralds. And it's those 3 that aren't Silver Surfer, because he's already a card and people like him, and sure. But Terrax, Fire Lord, Airwalker. Now, I don't know what those cards would do, but I guess they'd all be maybe 4 powers. 4 cost. Let's say like 9 powers. They're big deals. Herald of Galactus should be a big problem that all the rest of the cards have to deal with. So you can, if you play a Herald of Galactus in a lane on turn 4, because there's 4 cost, and maybe you can do it on turn 3 or get lucky or something like that, but like usually, if on turn 6 you play Galactus in that lane, you win that lane. No matter what the point spread is, you just win that lane. So if you're playing this game, you're doing stuff on 1, 2, trying to kind of get your options open, but this Galactus player is leaving the middle lane open for business. They get a Terrax. Terrax is like a 4/9, and he has some ability that gives him +1 for every other card in that zone or something like that. You play Terrax. Now, there is and this is another thing that would probably be conditional, a 1 turn. You cannot play Galactus the next turn. You have to play Galactus at least 1 turn after, because then what happens is your opponent gets a turn to fight, right? Like if your opponent can kill the Terrax and destroy that with a Shang-Chi or something else, or maybe move it into a lane where there's other guys and it's full or whatever. If your opponent can figure out a way to stop the Terrax, maybe they can, depower it with an Enchantress. If they can do that, you can't play that Galactus, right? So instead of being this kind of like, wait, play this one and this one for the Galactus, it becomes almost like something like Yu-Gi-Oh, where you play this card and it's like, this is protecting the lane. And now you, the person who's playing against them, have a fun little objective. All right, I gotta get my Shang-Chi in there, and I'll probably want to use something else to lower it so that, I don't know, or raise it so that it's killable by Shang-Chi, and then they can't do the Galactus. So it feels more fair because the other person gets an opportunity to stop the Galactus without having to do like shenanigans, like, moving arrow and stuff like that. But also, it feels like a good representation of what happens in the comics. You find out Galactus is coming, you kill the Herald or deal with them, and then you go fight Galactus, and then, you stop him, Ultimate Nullifier, whatever. But like, I think what's so important about this, and what I think would be so much fun about it, is that like, it feels like a card you would want to play. And it feels like a card that you would want to play against. It would be fun if you see someone and you're like, ooh, I think this is a Galactus deck. I think I'm going to be able to kill their guy with my Shang-Chi or whatever. And then they do, and then you do that. And then it's like, that's fun. That's fun for everybody. So, I don't have too many more ideas about specific cards. Galactus is the one that's really been bugging me. And I don't have it yet. You're welcome to give it to me, second dinner, if you feel like, I deserve it because I'm such a good person who's never said anything bad about the game. And you put me in your weird little affiliate program. But I think that is how, if for me, a comic fan, and someone who plays this game, I think that would solve both the flavor problem with Galactus, the fact that he destroys all the planets except for the one he shows up at, which is the opposite of how he works in the comics, and it would solve the gameplay problem with Galactus. It would turn him into a thing that you're like excited to try, and you have different strategies. Maybe moving the Herald around is what you're trying to do as the Galactus player, so that you can switch places, and then Galactus goes in another lane where your opponent has a lot of power. So it's like, bam, that is, you win that immediately because you have the Galactus there. And I think that would be fun. I think this would change the balance, so that, because right now if someone's like, which one do I get, I'd say Thanos a million times. It's more fun to play and you can win. It's not a bad one. Kang's weird. A Living Tribunal seems like a lot of fun. And obviously, High Evolutionary seems like a lot of fun. Living Tribunal, I guess, could be fun. It depends. But High Evolutionary, very fun. And I do think Galactus is going to get left behind when those other guys show up. And that stinks, because he's Galactus. He's the original. Well, I don't know about the original. I mean, he came before, like, Thanos. He's old, and he's important. He's a big deal. Like, he's a bigger deal than Thanos. He is an elder of the universe. He's up there with Death and the Living Tribunal and Eternity, Infinity, and all those characters. So, like, the fact that when you have a choice to put either, like, the coolest, biggest guy in your deck or the High Evolutionary, a lot of people can choose High Evolutionary. That's kind of a failure. So that's what I would do with this card. This video did not need to be this long, but this is the first one of my either one-part series or many-part series from now on about how we fix certain Marvel Snap, or just Marvel Snap things, how we do things differently. For instance, Shuri, real quick, I do think they'll do something like this. It's a prediction. The Shuri change, Shuri should work like Arnim Zola, her good friend, the Hydra guy, where you could put Shuri down turn 4, doesn't matter. She 4 costs, 2 power, whatever, keep that. She makes 1 card in that zone on the person who plays her side, doubles that power, right? So like you play, maybe not the Red Skull at this point, but like some other card with a lot of power. It's a 4 cost, I don't know, Sentry on turn 4. And then you play Shuri on turn 5, and then boom, now the Sentry is a 20 cost. The reason I think this is better is I think it fits with the flavor. Shuri upgrades this character, right? Upgrades their armor. She doesn't create heroes, she enhances them, enhances ones that already exist. But then B, the idea that, like, now you have a 20 cost Sentry out there, but that is vulnerable to Shang-Chiing. Now, if you put an armor over that sentry first on turn 2 or 3, your sentry's going to be safe. But there's a chance that your Shuri will double the power of the armor. So now the person playing the Shuri has to kind of take a risk. There's calculated risk involved. It's not automatically going to win the game. And that, I think, is what makes this fun, this X Factor element of Marvel Snap. So that's what I would do. If Second Dinner, if you guys want, add Nando V Movies, let me know. I will tell you, I will give you some ideas for Justin Hammer card, because I would love for one to exist in the game. As far as I know, it currently does not. It has not been data mined. I love that you guys have a flat man in there, and he's just a worse Mr. Fantastic. I can't wait to get that card in 8 years or whatever. And I like that Shadowcat immediately broke the game. I think that's fun, because that's very in line with the fact that, like, Kitty is too cool for school. A, she's just too good, and B, she breaks technology with phasing through it. So it's very fun. I like that.